Good morning, everyone. Laura, welcome. Takashi, welcome. I guess it's the first day of fall, so that's exciting. New beginnings, I didn't even know that. So what a perfect time for this video to assert some goals, some intentions for the week. Whew. It's been a crazy morning, but here we are. If it's your first time here, my name's Asa Merritt. I am writing short stories right now, short fiction. My background is in screenwriting, scripted stuff. I wrote an Audible series called 6 Sermons, starring Stephanie Hsu. And on this channel, as we'll see shortly, I am pursuing the art, craft, loved, traditional publication of short fiction. I have determined that this is what I want to be doing for the next few years, if not longer. We have community, and that is partly why Takashi is here, partly why Laura is here. I'm grateful you're here. And these Friday morning or Monday morning videos are to kind of create a space for us to be together and set intentions. I think it's a good thing to set intentions, both kind of personally, but there's all kinds of data that supports this as well, that if you sort of say your goals out loud, say them to others, say them to peers, they're more likely to happen. So that's what's happening here. Okay, per that, what's going on in the channel, just some quick hits here. On this channel, we have 2 story clubs. I run them with a friend and colleague, Sarah Ray Warner. Once a week, we are reading and analyzing from a writer's point of view stories out of this book, the big book of science fiction. This week, we're reading The Comet by W.E.B. Du Bois. And in the horror story club, there's a typo. W.E.B. Du Bois. And we also do a horror story club. We're working our way through this anthology called The Dark Descent. And this week we are doing a Harlan Ellison story, someone who wrote 1,700 short stories, a true expert of this craft. The name of that story this week is called The Whimper of Whipped Dogs. Sarah, welcome to the stream. So glad to have you here. Sarah is the aforementioned colleague, pal, reader and writer who I've really come to build a relationship with this year, working our way through these tremendous stories. We're about 8 weeks in, and I can feel myself. Sarah has said similar items that we're just getting better at writing by studying these stories. So come through. Like I said, there's a Discord. On Wednesday, by popular request, I think I'm going to come back to read another story out loud. That was so fun doing that. So something in the public domain, of course, maybe a post story, maybe I gotta dig it up. And then I really also want to get back to our Friday live writing this week, do something like that, and perhaps another vlog like the one I dropped last week, just something fun. I can't promise that necessarily, but I do really hope to get to the live writing. Takashi, I want to hit the 25% mark of my Magical Boy Cupid novel. Good luck doing that. I'm so glad to hear that. Now, on these Monday morning videos, I also like to share what I've started calling the big idea. And the big idea is something that usually doesn't directly have to do with writing. It's more of kind of a lifestyle thing or an orientation to the work, an intention, because what I'm finding at least is that so much of what determines both my productivity as a writer as well as the quality of my output are things outside of quantitative goals. I have big goals. I want to read 3,000 stories over the next few years. I want to publish X, But I'm also trying to be really reflective and deliberate about the other factors in my life that are really affecting my writing. And the big idea this week is do one thing at a time for a long time. So let me tell you what that means. So one thing at a time, we know this advice. It's just like if you take care of one thing at a time, it's productive. We all know multitasking is a myth. We've been in this place where it's like, we're on our phone, you know, if you have a job with like Slack, you're getting Slack and then you're switching to Instagram and your brain is like jumping and jumping and jumping. And so I'm trying to be a little bit more deliberate about my time. Naturally, in this day and age, a lot of that is like phone hygiene, but even outside of that, and this is where I get to the second part of do one thing at a time for a long time is that let time really pass in whatever thing I'm doing before moving on to the next thing. For example, I have 2 dogs. One of them is a new dog, and this creature, I love him dearly, but he takes forever to go to the bathroom on these walks. Let me tell you the context here about how that relates to this idea. Prior to I started experimenting with this idea last week. And prior to last week, I would bring my phone on these walks. Sometimes I would be listening to something. Sometimes I would kind of just be texting, whatever, doom scrolling, killing time while the 40 minutes elapsed before this dog did its business. And what I started doing is leaving the phone at home and just be walking the dog. And so I would be doing nothing but walking the dog for 40 minutes. And so I was doing one thing, walking the dog, for a long time. And what I found is I had that experience that happened, and I think this is particularly true if you live in an urban area and you're walking a lot, where I noticed something on the blocks right near my house, blocks that I have walked thousands of times. I noticed some things that I had never seen before, ever, in all those walks. And I realized that what was happening is that my kind of consciousness was coming to the surface in a little bit more of an active way, a little bit more of a perceptive way, a deeper way. And I just kind of had a little bit different relationship with the reality that I was participating in. I meditate every day, which of course is kind of the mainline example of this, but I'm finding that there's more opportunities during the day to just kind of do the thing you'd be doing. And I'm finding that by doing that, I think my writing is getting stronger, because then when I sit down to writing, there's more focus, there's longer stretches of focus, the sort of oft mentioned flow state, to the extent that something like that is true. I'm getting there faster and staying in there longer, because in other parts of my life, I'm kind of sticking with it longer. So that's the big idea. One thing at a time for a long time. Yeah, let me know what you think about that. Oh, these great stuff. I need to finish 2 Christmas horror stories. Lore, good luck. Start an HOA. What does that stand for? Sarah, how are you feeling? Sarah, you're in our thoughts, if you know what's up there. So next up, just the concrete writing goals for the week. So that's my big idea. That's kind of the holistic change that I want to make this week. My writing goals, I want to start a new story this week. My personal Christmas horror story, we did a live writing about Christmas horror on this channel with Sarah. Sarah and I did. I've completed it. I feel good about it. I can tell already that at the level of the line, and dare I say, I think at the level of structure, this story is stronger than the prior pieces that I've made since starting short fiction. I think that it is deeper, it has more to say. It's 1,800 words rather than 800, which of course is still a very short story, but significantly longer than the pieces of flash fiction that I had written to date. So feeling super great about that. I want to continue revising that. I have a longer, closer to 4,000 word Weird Wild West story that I'm working on. It's started to intimidate me a little bit. I need to at least dip in this week so it doesn't get cold artistically. It's about a snake show on the road, a con man and a snake show. So I need to get back in there, maybe just try to find the fun of it. Thematically, it started being about really serious stuff, kind of this man at the end of his life, mortality. It was like, oh my God, this is too real. So submitting, I want to get that other Weird Wild West piece out. If you've been following the channel, you know what I'm talking about. Sam, the ghost story, is out, as is that other story I put in the vlog, The Visit. That is also out for submission. That didn't make it in here, but it's there. Okay. Those are the writing goals for the week. Okay, this I'm super stoked on. Craft challenge for the week. So this is where I want to get in a little bit to the nitty gritty of what I'm thinking about as a writer, how I'm trying to get better as a writer. And there's really 2 kind of big picture ideas around what makes a good short story that I want to talk about. And one I learned from the masterclass by Joyce Carol Oates. I iconic short story writer, American. She wrote Where Did You Come From? Where Are You Going? Classic, scary kind of text. And one thing that she said in this class is that, a short story generally should capture an essential moment in someone's life, a before-after moment. And I feel like I should have known that. I feel like that's kind of intuitive, but I really didn't. And I found in writing the Santa story that applying that really improved it. The story kind of did that, but then going into it with that, like, how is this story a before-after moment for this person's life, improved it. So I want to take that into the new story that I start drafting this week. Additionally, my sort of writing guide right now, Samantha Schweblin, the Argentine writer, she says, I watched an interview of hers, she says that for her, a short story is identifying a super specific emotion or a super specific emotional experience, something so specific and precious that if she were to describe it, it would be really hard to describe. It would have to go down various roads to try to get to it. And a story for her is the vessel to communicate a specific emotion. So I want to keep that in mind as well, because that resonates for me. That resonates for me about the point of a short story. I'm not a poet. I haven't written many poems in my life, but I've written a few. And the few that I did write, I spent months on them. And it echoed that sentiment where, for me, it was almost like tattooing a specific emotion that I had experienced somewhere in my life. And by putting it into words, I really owned it. And so there's a little bit of an echo there. And so when I heard her talk about that in terms of short stories, I said, hey, that's for me. So those are sort of the two kind of art of fiction, art of short story ideas that I want to get into this week. On the reading front, I ran out of time this morning to load all the screenshots. So this kind of applies. I want to dig deeper. I found last week that reading stories multiple times, and I've realized this recently doing Story Club, because those I usually read more than once, but I started reading other stories multiple times, namely Shirley Jackson stories from this collection. So on the screen there I have the Summer People, but this is a collection called Dark Tales, which has her scarier work in it. And just reading these and appreciating how precise she is with every sentence, with every paragraph, just the aspiration of that kind of precision. I think affirming that aspiration, pursuing that aspiration requires close reading, which means multiple readings. I think another writer who does this, another famous short story writer, is Flannery O'Connor. Her short stories are amazing. I think it's important to sort of talk about the artists that we aspire. A lot of kind of dirt has come out about Flannery O'Connor. She was a racist, less explicitly than, say, Lovecraft, who we read recently. In any event, just to put that out there, I do love her short stories, and I do think they are masterpieces of the form. And like Jackson, I think that she is incredibly precise with her language. Another author, just to say her name again, Samantha Schweblin. This is a collection of her stories in translation. She writes in Spanish, to be clear. These are translations. And similarly, so precise. And she talks about that in her writing. Flannery O'Connor was an inspiration for her. And, I think the kind of short story writer I'm becoming is in this tradition. I think down the road, once have fully kind of realized a vision of the short story, which I think is going to take years, at this moment, I really feel like I would identify those three writers, Shirley Jackson, Flannery O'Connor, Samantha Schweblin, as foundational. So this week I want to dig further into those writers. On the screen here you see Good and Evil. This is the new Samantha Schweblin collection. I'm going to have to go get that in the US most likely, so I'm going to have to wait on that. And then these just pictures, in case you're new, these are the images of the two books that we're reading for Story Club, the ones I talked about sooner. And a reminder there, we do have a Discord, which I think I put in the video description. If not, it's somewhere on the channel, where some of the most active folks in the Story Club, a really strong cadre of writers, are really participating in it. It's very exciting. It's very exciting. So this last piece here, send me your goals. Let's talk about community. Again, I have just, my background's in screenwriting, my background's in playwriting. The writers that I came up with, the writers that I have sent my work to, have been mostly script writers. And I've just found that even by osmosis, on YouTube, on AuthorTube, connecting with y'all has been super valuable. And I just wanted to thank you. I want to thank you for being here. I'm just going to hit some of these comments. Oh, I love this. Sarah says, I heard boredom is essential for creativity too. Yeah, I think that's another version of what I'm describing, is like not doing anything. Asa, so important to stop and observe what's around us. So much material for our writing if we stop and watch and listen 100%. I think that, especially for short stories, it can be just like one little person who's furious at a barbershop about something totally unreasonable, or just like, a kid in a candy shop, like hoarding a certain, there's just little moments of human behavior and human will at work that like we're capable of inventing whole stories around. And yeah, if you're just like buried in your phone, which we're all guilty of, you're not going to notice. Sarah, please rest. Yes, Sarah, I hope you feel better ASAP as well. Takashi, also, exposure to different environments can help to enhance your writing. One thing I do to get creative juice going is mix one thing I hate and one thing I love. I resonate with this, exposure to different environments. I went to this coffee shop last week that I never go to, and it just, I think even the walking a different route of the city was eye-opening. Asa, thank you so much for sharing your personal curriculum each week. It's really motivating. Like I said, thank you for listening, because just to say it out loud, to articulate why I'm excited about these writers is motivating for myself. I Venn diagram things to find new solutions. Takashi, that is fascinating. So, everyone, I'm gonna end the stream here and get going on my own day, my own week. We have such potential on my own fall. Autumn is here. What a time. What a time, everyone. Have a great day. If you want to keep the conversation going, find us in the Discord. I think you can write comments in this video as well. And later today, if you want to just kind of loop back and hang out with Sarah and I, the comment, W. Dubois, 4 p.m. EST. If you're a horror person or if you're both, tomorrow, 4 p.m. EST, Harlan Ellison, The Whimper of Whipped Dogs. That story. All right, folks. Have a good day, everybody. I'll talk to you later.